Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Focus to Evolve book chat. I am Tana again, and with me is my partner, Jason. Jason, how are you?
Doing well. I was saying we got the Paul Bunyan beard and the rolled up sleeves, so it's time for business.
Time to get to work. I love it. So today is a little different. Today we're kind of doing a look back at all of the books we've reviewed so far and kind of doing a best of book chat episode where we just kind of talk to each other about like the patterns we've seen, the best advice that we've gleaned. And so it's going to be a little more informal today, and just kind of you guys get to watch Jason and I chit chat about what we love to chit chat about most. And so I wanted to talk about how when I am reading these books, I am picturing, like, I grew up in the 80s, and I keep picturing how self-help books would have looked so different in the 80s. I feel like if we were doing a book club in the 80s, the advice would have been more like, if you want to succeed, you can never rest. You need to always hustle. Forget about a personal life. Forget about your health. You're going to have to put all of your energy into this endeavor. And I feel like we as a species kind of like bought into that kind of mindset, and we said, okay, let's do that. And we just kind of started hustling. And then 40 years later, all of the self-help books are doing a complete 180, and they're like, yo, hard work is important, but this is also what's really important, and you need to make sure that these things are a part of it. And that's kind of where we kind of tend to read books. But I feel like there wouldn't be a whole lot of self-help books these days that if they said you need to hustle, you need to grind, you need to forget your health, you need to forget your family, that those books would not do well, I don't think, anymore. And like, I can't even imagine seeing a book that would say something like that. And the books that we have kind of looked at so far definitely do not say grind yourself into the ground and that's the only way to be successful. They say very different things. But even though the most successful people in the world right now and the most balanced people in the world right now say, you shouldn't be grinding yourself into the ground. You should pay attention to rest and to sleep and things like that. We still live in that old kind of 1980s kind of hustle mentality where our brains are continuously saying, no, you need to be on 100% of the time, or there's going to be bad consequences. So that's kind of an overarching kind of view that I have of the books that we've had so far. Do you have any input you want to kind of put into that observation of mine?
Beautiful observation. The only thing that I would say at a real high level here before we get into some fun details is why are you reading these self-improvement books? It's something I ask myself all the time. I spend a lot of time doing it, and I listen to the minds of the real samurai out there all the time. And getting addicted to learning is it's a toxicity. There's positive positive attitude toxicity. I think it's called positive toxicity, where you're ignoring neutrality. You're ignoring bad things, and it's inauthentic. It's inauthentic to yourself. That causes illness, real illness in the body and the psyche. Well, it's the same thing with self-improvement. Keep in mind why you're reading this, and then actually do what you read. That's an integrity to yourself as well. So you kind of got to think through all these different kind of angles and dimensions of personal improvement as you or as we continue to read all these cool books that these people are doing. So in addition to what you just said, I would say keep that in mind too. Do this in a healthy way where you get to digest, you get to integrate. Don't just go on to the next book to get the dopamine fix. I went on a 1-year reading hiatus a few years back, and I'm actually doing another one this year. Aside from these books that we will do in this book chat, I'm not going to be taking on new books.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be reviewing 100,000 notes that if I would just do 10% of, I'd be Superman. So why put on another 100,000 notes on when I haven't even. I remember Greg McEwen in one of these books said, I think don't go the extra mile if you haven't done the first mile. And there's a lot of truth in that. So that'd be my only high level conversation or a point on top of what you said.
Yeah. I love that because you definitely can get into when you're reading all of these books and it's all about improving yourself, improving yourself. Yeah, you don't want to get to a place where you're inauthentic with yourself or you're just constantly like, let's be positive all the time, because that's not true to life either. There are the dark patches and shadows in life that are very important too. And you don't want to always just wipe those away with a thought. You want to sometimes dive into them and see what they want to teach you. And those are the points of growth in our lives. So yeah, definitely. It's not all about positivity all the time.
No, it's not. And it's definitely not all about focus. I guess we'll just go ahead and get our shovels out and start digging now.
Yeah.
But it is not all about just focus. One of the overarching themes is, the happiest and most fulfilled life. It's found in deep focus and, undulation out into unfocus.
Yeah.
And experiencing life and looking at the color of your daughter's eyes, like really looking at the color and sensing her being, as an example, or your dog sitting right next to me. I have a little dog here, or a walk in the woods, and then get back to focus. So it's not an all-in thing. It never has been, and it can't be. We're not wired that way, and that's really echoed in almost every one of these books that we've chatted on so far.
For sure. Yeah, that was definitely one of my overarching themes with like deep work, tinker, dabble, doodle, try, effortless, indistractable. All of them talk about injecting idleness or unfocused or rest or leisure into your day. And that's something that we do talk about in our training sessions with people. But I like to talk about how our training sessions, it's like 2 hours, but usually when people inject it into their lives, it's more of an unfolding process of things. And the unfocused part that we tend to tell people, this is really important to inject into your day. That's like a 400 level course for people that they don't usually get to that until well down the path of their kind of journey, because so many people, when they're first told it, it's so foreign to the way that we learn, to the way we've been indoctrinated, to our culture, that they're like, I mean, they're telling me that unfocused would be important for me to be able to be more creative or more rested or to hear my genius thoughts, but nah, and they just don't give it the time of day. And even if people are constantly telling you, this is important, this is where I learned the true genius in my life, it was just by being quiet for a while and stopping all of the mad busyness that this came to me. No matter how many times we hear it, we still just kind of put it on the back burner because it's so foreign to our culture. But that is something that all of these books, like you said, it's a common thread in all of the books that you need to have downtime. Your brain and your body and your spirit needs to have downtime. So that is definitely one of the first overarching themes that I also saw when looking back at the books and our notes from those.
Yeah. And it's a soft value, whereas focus and actually typing a letter is a hard value. You see it, it's tangible. A soft value example would be, not to get all squishy here, but when you are in stillness, when you finally learn this unbelievably important craft of putting moments of stillness in your life, you get to feel.
Mm-hmm.
That's the end of the sentence, period. You get to feel things like emotions. The feeling of anxiety or loneliness or fear, that's just the messenger. It's telling you something. It's telling you something really important. And a really easy escape is to just be busier.
Yeah.
And ignore that messenger that's riding through the streets saying, hey, there's a fire. And you need to take care of the fire because town hall is going to burn down. No, I'm busy. I don't even want to look at that message.
Mm-hmm.
That's our emotions are so important. And the evolved way of the working human and just the living human, the evolved way is to find stillness so you can really pay attention to those messages, or the emotions and the feelings. But you also get to hear this beautiful genius whisper in stillness too.
Mhm.
That's, hey, remember to call your grandma. You haven't talked to her in 4 weeks and she's in a rest home. She's probably lonely. When you're busy as heck, you're not thinking that way. Or stillness is where those genius ideas whisper. Tinker Dabble Doodle Try It talks a lot about that, where you're kind of undulating into a stillness or a kind of a floating mind, and the ideas come. And that's so true. I've been on the frantically busy side. I was proud of my frantic show. It's how I climbed the corporate ladder. Hey, boss, look how busy I am. But I was this mindless working drone.
Mhm.
And I'm reminded of that tale where the guy says, hey, if I hand you an axe to go chop down trees, I was so proud of being the first guy that would pick up that axe. Yes, boss, you got it, buddy. I'll go and just chop away until my arms fell off and get good 4 or 5 trees chopped down in the day. But the new version, the evolved me, and hopefully the evolved working workforce coming soon, is we wouldn't jump out of the seat. We would sit there while the other people sprint up and go and chop, and we meditate on where to find a chainsaw. And then we know where to get the chainsaw. And then all of a sudden we cut down 16 or 30 trees compared to the 4 trees that I would have if I would have just stood up and went and sprinted and done it with hard work and just out gritting everybody. The new evolved person is going to listen to their emotions, and they're going to be deliberate and hardworking and have free time as a result, so they can be healthy, fully integrated humans. That's what we teach. That's my life's mission. And I know it is yours as well. We are just resonating on the same page with that.
Mhm. Yeah, that was definitely also an overarching theme of most of the books that we read, is that busyness as a proxy for productivity kind of mentality. That's Cal Newport's way to kind of talk about what that phenomenon you were just talking about when we talked about deep work. That's something that he heavily talked about. Just people wanting to look like they're busy in order to make it seem like they are valuable. And there are many other ways to actually be valuable, and it doesn't involve looking like you are busy. And hopefully
Yeah,
that's where we're going as a species.
that it absolutely is. That is our evolution. And by the way, quick zoom in here. Looking busy for others
Yep.
is a big one. Looking busy for yourself so you don't feel guilty in a culture that requires it is another variable.
And
You,
and going back to what you were saying before, being busy to outrun the feelings that you have that are not comfortable to you. That's
yeah,
another thing.
yeah. And so everyone just kind of pause and take 2 breaths here on this note, because everyone in the Western working world has some degree of this, whether you admit it or not. It's so true. There are few people who would literally just be able to call off the next 3 hours and go out in a park and literally do nothing but listen to birds. Now that's a boring example. I don't want to give a boring example, but whatever your real leisure and recovery activity would be, it's a hard thing to do. So just be with that. Feel that feeling of guilt or anxiety that the boss might be looking out the window, and just know that you're recovering, so that when you come back online, you're back to where you were at 9 a.m. this morning, and you don't have to coffee through your ultradian rhythm and your biorhythms, which causes this huge deficit, as McEwen talks about also. Never do more than you can recover from in the same day, because that deficit leads to depression, leads to anxiety, leads to a whole lot of other bad chemical things in your body, even ending in cancer and things. They're starting to tie cancer to constant cortisol spike of our working lives and adrenal fatigue. And it goes on and on and on. This stuff's real. And thank God that our species is now finally starting to realize it. And the pendulum is coming back.
Mhm. Yes. Another overarching theme that I saw was distractions, and how it's more of an issue than ever before, supposedly. and successful workers going forward will need to have systems in place for managing those distractions. That's the next frontier of intelligence. It is managing of all of the distractions that are in our world. That has constantly been a refrain through all of these books as well. And if you ever need help with managing distractions, that is something that we teach. So
That really is. That's like at the center of it, isn't it?
yeah.
The intelligences, you've got emotional intelligence, physical intelligence, the standard IQ, you have sexual intelligence, all these new intelligences where some humans are really strong and others aren't. And that's why we're tribal. We're a pod creature, because we fill each other's, shortcomings, and some are good and some are bad. DQ. I think someone should write a book called DQ, Distraction Intelligence. And it really will have a lot to do with who thrives in the future, because guess what? The digital companies, the social media platforms, they're only getting smarter at owning your attention and making sure that you're looking at their shiny stuff. So you're fighting an uphill battle if you don't start looking at the meta level skill of managing distractions. And, balance in life, or counterbalance, however you want to say it, that doesn't just fall in your lap. That stuff is engineered and selected by you. You engineer a balanced life. You take it, because it's never going to be given to you, ever. Mm-hmm. So it's a super important point.
Yeah. Those were kind of my deep overarching kind of patterns that I saw. What would you like to talk about on your end?
Reiterating that idea that busy is it's not a sign of value. Moving your body and spending calories is not, it's not a direct correlation to impact. Mm-hmm. And just kind of think about that. Like, I really want to reiterate that. We've already touched on it a little bit. Yeah. The last overarching thing, again, we're staying at 50,000 feet in this particular book chat, is I love how, especially in the book 4,000 Weeks, he talks about that the name of the game is to literally and immediately jump out of this infinite to-do list. Mm-hmm. And, I really contemplated on that one. And let's just pretend that, Tana, you and I found this new secret that allowed everybody to produce 100 times more than they could normally. 100 times. Okay. Every day. That's amazing, right? Here's the thing. Tomorrow, you would just have 100 times more things to do. And then you could be 1,000 times more, or 100,000 times. Tomorrow, it would just be that many more things that you can do in this universe. There's no end to it. And then we forget about that. So all of these authors talk a lot about, especially McEwen, and in the book 4,000 Weeks, he talks about, or not 4,000, I don't remember the exact number, but it's 4,000 something. Mm-hmm. They talk about having a defined upper stop point on what you do. Mm-hmm. And man, is that so true for me. And when you hit that upper stop point, okay, let your old self have one more task if you want, but stop it after that one more and go and do some living. And when that guilt comes rushing in, just be like, oh yeah, that's because you care a lot. Good job. But no, we're just not going to do more for the sake of doing more. I hit my upper limit. With that, I know I'm going to hit my goals. I know my company's going to hit their goals. I know my boss is going to be happy because I hit my upper limit. And then just stop. Go home to the family. Or go be with yourself. Go to the spa. I don't know, do something cool. Mm-hmm. I hear that was the last large overarching theme, is to give yourself an upper limit.
Yeah. Basically, so much of it is saying that the defaults in our culture are hurting us, and we should not let them be the defaults anymore. We need to completely just change the paradigm of this, and it won't mean that we are not successful anymore. It won't mean that we're not hardworking anymore. We'll just be smarter. about it. And we'll actually probably be more successful if we take all of these things into account, because then our biology, our spirituality, our families, our health, everything will just be working in synergy together to take us to levels that we probably have just never seen as a species. But we need to heed the advice of the the kind of the nuances of how we not just power through and grind all the time anymore, because that's just not serving us.
Yeah. Sorry about my dog. UPS guy just hit the office. But that does, of course, remind me of the old airplane example. And that, when the mask comes down, put yours on first so you can take care of people. You don't pass out and be just dead weight worthless.
Yep.
That is the metaphor of life.
Yep.
That's why you're supposed to do that. And we were, as a child, I don't know about you, your background, but I was brought up with a thing where it was selfish to take care of yourself a little bit. It was almost like, oh, you just love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
No, no, it's actually, I want to take care of me. I can take care of you. In later life, I can maturely know that now. But back then, there was some guilt around self-care.
Yeah. And there still is.
Still is. Shouldn't be. Just do it in a balanced way and be healthy and thrive, just like you said.
Yeah. Every time I hear a story of someone who says that sleep, like Jennifer Lopez, one time I heard her say that sleep is the power behind her success and the way that she looks the way she does when she's 50 years old. And I thought, oh, that's giving me permission to sleep.
Great.
By hearing her say that. People who talk about how they go off of the grid for years at a time, just hearing them say that gives me permission to go off the grid, and for even just a couple of days at a time. And just every time we keep telling each other these stories that I did this thing that is counterculture, and look at me, I'm still alive, I haven't died, and I'm still successful, it gives someone else permission. So hopefully, as we have book chats, if people hear them, they will give themselves permission to try out the things that we do in our lives, and hopefully they'll see the benefits of all of that on their side as well.
How long ago was that you heard Jennifer Lopez say that?
Oh,
How old were you?
But she was a mother already at that point. So she, as a mother and as someone who has really successful concerts that go late into the night, she's still like, no, I need a certain number of hours of sleep. And I carved that out. That's really important. And I said, yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. You tagged onto that.
I can do it too.
Yeah. You tagged onto that early. Really good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, we've covered some of the thousands of points in the books. I'll tell you, the joy I got out of just re-listening to all of our book chats up to this point, there were some great reminders. I mean, really great reminders. I would absolutely binge on those. I don't care who was saying it. These authors are awesome thinkers. And I'm so thankful that we live in an era where we have such easy access to brains like that. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I love it. In a time where you've got not just libraries, but you've got Audible or Libby or different things where you can hear people read to you. It's so accessible. But you always, like you said before, you want to try and get some of that injected into your life. You don't want to just glaze over it and go on to the next thing either. So if you can do one thing, put some leisure into your life, put some time
right.
into your life. That will change some things.
That's good. So that's your favorite. If you had to pick one, like just work on getting a little leisure and a little recovery into your world.
Sleep, rest,
beautiful,
focus.
Yeah.
That's a good
my final saying, I would like to reiterate, this one's for the really busy high producer. It's if you're having trouble doing what Tana's final pick was, which is get some leisure and some health recovery time in, this is what worked for me, is exercise that upper limit. When you hit it, know that the high goals have been set and you can now shut it off. You've got permission without guilt. So that is speaking to my heart. And if anyone out there is a high producer and they just don't have that turn off button, it feels yucky. That upper limit defined on a day can help.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, this was fun, really informal, but I like just our informal conversations too. So, and
I
hopefully
do too.
out there will find something helpful in what we've said today. And thank you to everybody. And we will see you next time.
See you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.